For ambitious dads caught between work and home, this is where you find your footing. Here's your host, Jeff Hittner.
Welcome to the Ambitious Dads Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Hittner. After more than 200 conversations with fathers, I've realized we're not talking enough. Not about our fears, our ambitions, how our kids are really doing, or how we're holding up in the middle of all of it. This podcast is for the dads trying to build something meaningful and be present at home. The ones carrying a lot, questioning if they're doing enough, and craving honest conversations without the filters. If that's you, you're not alone. You're in the right place. Let's figure this out together. And today we have a very special guest. His name is Mark Willis. Mark is a certified financial planner and, most importantly, of course, a father of two. He's got two girls, a 10-year-old and a 3-month-old. So he went back for more after graduating past the toddler and tween years. So welcome, Mark. And how are you doing? First of all, you're in the middle of, are you in, do you have paternity leave, or how is that working for you?
I'm a business owner, so I got to kind of, it's a blessing and a curse because you get to name your time. So my wife and I did decide for me to come back for about 2 months and just hang out, help out, and absorb the new reality of sleepless nights one more time again. But thankfully, it's been going great. We're so thankful, so blessed to have a new little girl in our life. And it's been a pleasure getting to reacquaint ourselves with diapers and bottles and all that fun stuff that happens with baby time.
Let me ask you a question about that right off the bat, because, I'm obviously also an entrepreneur, and taking time off when the kids are born as the business owner is a little trickier, right? Like whether or not you want to take 3 months or 5 months or 6 months or 1 week of parental leave, it's up to you in part. It's up to how your business is doing in part. It's up to what your partner needs. So how did that play out for you emotionally?
It was anxiety producing to some degree, mainly because I'm just built to do something. Even though I am a certified financial planner and I work with clients to help them reach their goals toward retirement, as an example, I don't really have the word retirement in my own vocabulary. To retire means to put out of service. And I don't want that for me. I want to be going strong. I want to be engaged in the passions and the purposes of my life right up to when my boots go vertical, if you know what I mean. As when I switch to the other side of the grass, so to speak. So, it was just a different, it was like shifting gears on a manual transmission car that hadn't shifted in a while. And I've always had a fairly balanced life. I check out at 4:30 p.m. every day to be with family. It's dad time. I'm checking into dad zone. I usually get into the groove of work later in the morning, 8:30, 9 a.m., something like that. So, and then I work from my home, so I get to spend more time with the family, making lunches and things like that. So it was less of a hard reality getting back into the groove, because it was always sort of a lifestyle of I'm both a family man and a businessman. It was never a harsh Band-Aid ripoff moment to go back to having meetings and so forth in the last month or so.
But in terms of stepping away as the owner, was that like, were you still constantly checking the emails?
Yeah.
Were you comfortable putting those calls off? Yeah.
What's so funny is the emails, it's a funny thing. I always jokingly say email inboxes are the worst thing. They are the portal to hell, because they are a to-do list other people add to for you. Now, what kind of hell is that? In fact, I even thought, I had a realization during this paternity leave. I will probably die with unread emails in my inbox.
I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, it just is a reminder that it's a never done task, that dreaded thing called the email inbox. And thank God I've got a good staff around me that basically managed the business. We were profitable beyond my expectations during the months I was away. That's usually a good sign that you're doing something right when the business becomes as or more profitable after you step away for a few months than when you're in there messing things up all the time for your team. But yeah, we've got a great team, incredible team that was, I'm sure, happy to let me, get off their backs for a few months and let them get some projects done. And it was, anxiety producing for me more so than my wife, because she is our operations officer for the business. So she was totally aware that this is going to be fine. Mark, you don't need to have client meetings. Your clients will be okay too. We had trained our staff to do the things that I usually am in there doing. So it was so great. We have other advisors that we're stepping into for me. So that's been so great to have built the ship so that when the captain needs to go below the deck for a while and take a breather, the rest of the team just kind of kicks into high gear and knows what to do. It was actually really cool. There's something called strategic absence that I heard that I think is so helpful both in family life and business life. Like if you feel like you're the one that has to show up and tie everybody's shoes for the rest of their life, you're going to have a 30-year-old come over to your house every day asking, "Hey, Dad, can you still tie my shoes before I go off to the office today?" And that's just not healthy for anybody. You have to learn to let somebody else do it, even if it's not quite as good, even if it's taking you longer. It took me a long time. It took extra minutes for me to teach my daughter, here, you put your finger here and you lace it there. But now it's so much better to have that strategic absence, to be ignorant on purpose in various areas of your life. It just helps with anxiety. If you want less anxiety, both in work and in life, have less of an opinion on everything, and everything just gets a lot easier.
There's a lot that you said there that was very interesting. As a leadership expert, by the way, there's a lot we can talk about when the business is doing better when you step back, which is a really cool conversation. But what I want to ask is, are you able to also take your own medicine in that same sense with your eldest daughter, right? So you are, full-time dad for these couple of months, and obviously your eldest daughter is going to be impacted by the birth of her sister. Has it been easy to actually give her more autonomy? Or when you get into dad mode, particularly wanting to help with the baby, does it feel like it sort of spills over into her, as you were talking about, like always tying the shoe? Do you feel like sometimes you're actually doing more than you need to, rather than the stepping away part, which is particularly important around 10 years old?
Well, that's a really good question, really insightful and deep question that we probably could dig deep into. I think, whether we do it well or not, I think the role of a parent, there's at least two big roles, and maybe one parent emphasizes this more than the other parent. Hopefully there's a balance between both. One is, and in the Hebrew Bible, there's this idea that, children are like a quiver of arrows, right? And the idea of an arrow, if you think about what do you do with an arrow, you put it in the bow and you pull it toward your heart, and then you have to let it go. And that's what a good arrow should do. It should fly and it should reach its potential, reaching its potential, overcoming inertia and more. So we have to do both. We have to pull our children toward our hearts, and one parent might do that better than another. I know sometimes I do that better than I should, and sometimes I don't do it better than I should. And then we also have to be ready and brave enough as parents to let them go. And so you're right. I think there's actually an interesting contrast when there are children of such different ages. Your children are closer in age, I believe,
from 6 and 9.
So maybe it's a little more difficult for you to know what's the boundary for a 9-year-old versus a 6-year-old. And maybe you're doing a great job on that. I don't know, but it's somewhat easier because the contrast is so great. I can see the autonomy, the responsibility. I can trust my 10-year-old with an open flame while she's cooking. I can't do that with my 3-month-old. Really, not much I can trust her with yet, except just to look cute and give us a little bit of extra laundry to do. So, at this point, I think we're doing okay in this really smart question, but it is important. What I do think is hard is when all of our attention, and this probably is true with many parents, when all of your attention necessarily is pointed toward that 3-month-old, you have to remember to care and love and honor the 10-year-old heart that's still needing your attention, focus, grace, and again, to let that little arrow start to fly.
I love that. And actually, with my kids, it is a little difficult because they're more similar in age. So my 9-year-old often will say that I'm being more like harsh and consequential with him. And it's because he's 9. And so like the same actions produce consequences, and they produce like, no, it's not all right as a 9-year-old to kick your brother, right? Well, you didn't give the same consequence to my brother. He's 6. He hit me, and I was like, yes, he's 6, but he doesn't recognize the distinction so much. And
Right.
it is a challenge. It is a challenge. So I actually appreciate that you have that bigger gap, so it's not so much of an issue, because sometimes like in the harsh moments, I think my oldest feels like, oh, you love the 6-year-old more, or you're always so hard on me. And it's really not
Right.
that. It's like, I do have different expectations for two different age groups. And yeah, that gets tricky sometimes. Talk to me a little bit about, like, what have been some of the biggest challenges you've had since having a baby again, in terms of just like what's keeping you up most at night?
Exactly. One thing is keeping me up at night.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But I know your question is deeper than just a baby's cries. But the hardest thing is finding that wonderful heart-to-heart time with now my wife and my older daughter, because we were a family of 3 for so many years. Now a family of 4 is a reorientation for sure. And so expressly saying, hey, my wife and I, we must have that time, find some time before, other obligations take over, to just check in as close to daily as possible, so that we're not drifting apart. I think yesterday we were talking about, my wife was smart enough when we started our business 11 or 12 years ago. She said, I wanted to work with you, Mark, because I knew that we would spend more time together. And she's right. We spend a lot of time together, and we stay in touch with each other. We know who the other person is. How many families, and it's okay, I mean, every family is built differently, but how many marriages do you just basically show up at the end of the day and you stare at this stranger across the dinner table and you wonder, who is this person? Because you've gone these many months or years without even having a simple emotional check-in point. Or it's been tough to do these last few months, Jeff. I won't deny that, but it's something that we're intending to do, trying to do, reaching for as best we can. Because again, if we're going to do this project of raising children and growing a business, you got to find time to sync up. You got to do the sync up time.
Well, I'll tell you, my wife and I could never run a business together. So more power to you, because
it's not for everybody, for sure.
No, I think there's it's a special, I'm not saying better or worse, but definitely a special type of marriage where you can also be business partners together. Right. So that's very, very interesting. Now,
and there's plenty of marriages where not working together makes each of their individual vocations stronger. You can talk to each other at the end of the day about it.
For sure.
Find insights.
Yes, so, more objectively. Very
absolutely,
true.
Absolutely. Less drama. Yeah.
Yeah. There was definitely a time where I was doing a lot of work that was very much impact focused and not financially focused. And my wife, I will never forget, said, I need to know that you want to make money. And that was like her check-in, like, hey, there's some other things that need to be brought into the mix here.
That's great.
So you talked a good game about, that you need to find this time, but it sounds like it's still very difficult. And what are some of the obstacles that you feel are getting in the way? Is it because, you don't have someone to help with the baby for a little while, or is it an exhaustion thing, or what is it that's standing in the way at the moment?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Peeling back the layers, I would say the biggest thing that I have found in my life in these last 3 months has just been the reorientation of our daily cycle. What we could rely upon in terms of a structure is totally gone right now. And that's difficult for a firstborn like myself and a business owner like myself, to not have that kind of structure, and to not be ready to anticipate, hey, this is our Friday afternoon is when we're going to sync up and really connect for an hour or whatever. When that's no longer there for the reasonable, hopefully limited period of time, that gets difficult for all of us. And I think it's okay to see that it's a temporary thing. And it is difficult. Some of those obstacles are just the constant requirements that baby requires immediate attention, very much all the time. So
Yeah.
I was telling you, I think before we hit record, I think that just the wonder that I have this older, wonderful and very thoughtful, very caring, big-hearted, responsible older daughter that's on occasion able to have sister time and just take care of little one. And we just won't have to worry about her for 30 minutes or 40 minutes or something. And so my wife and I can have that special, simple time, or I can go work out at the gym, or I can do whatever and just pour into the other domains of our life that would otherwise be failing. I think the hardest part is just checking in with yourself and saying, am I starving other areas of my life in order to sustain this wonderful new life that's come into our family? And that's something that we are still trying to, correct the overcorrection from last
Yeah,
week.
no, I can really appreciate that. You're talking about, your whole rhythm of your day, your week is totally disrupted, and of course, it takes a decent amount of time to figure out how to sort of redesign it. And it sounds like you're very intentional and aware of that, because it may not even be possible still, right? As your youngest is still going through constant changes. It's so interesting. What do you notice in terms of, I'd like to ask this question around fear. So think back to when you had your first daughter, right? Those fears you had maybe the first several months and the first several years. How are they, what is different? What is constant? But most importantly, what is different that you feel in terms of those fears or challenges now, 10 years later, having a second child?
What's different and what's constant? And in terms of fears and challenges. Well, we're 10 years older, and that has some advantages and disadvantages. Again, I think the biggest things that's the same is you remember, okay, it's not forever. That's a wonderful advantage this time. And you might remember with your second child, you remember those first few days, weeks, months are sort of terrifying. As you're, with your first child, you're like, is this going to be like this forever? And then by your second child, you're like, no, he's going to have a fussy period, and then it's going to break through to something better. So that part is, I think, a pleasant surprise. The difference, I think, is just that we're at a different stage in our lives, energy levels, careers. Things are different in terms of what's expected of a business that's, now 10, 12 years, let's see, now 12 years old, almost 13 years old. And our staff needs our attention. It's another kind of teenager in our house. You might say, we jokingly say we've got three kids. Our business is the third one. So it's important to just understand what my energy levels are and where my energy is going to go today. There's a number of, I just heard, this is sort of off the topic, but as we're recording this, I just heard that someone my age, was it the owner of OnlyFans or the founder of it? I can't remember, just passed away. And he was worth about $5 billion. And I'm not going to dunk on this guy because I don't know him at all. But I know there's probably a lot of people talking about his lifestyle and the pain that he's brought a lot of people. But what I think I was most thinking about when I heard about his death from cancer was, what's going to go on my tombstone? Like, is it going to be, he pleased himself so much? That would be a terrible, frightening tombstone. He was always looking out for himself. He met every challenge by running away from it. He didn't meet his potential. Or even worse, he had such great potential. That's probably the most terrifying tombstone I can imagine. He had such great potential. It feels good when you're 18 years old. Oh, wow, that boy over there, he's got great potential. Your sons, They've got great potential. I'm sure they do. My daughters do. But to have the whole life spent and then on the tombstone have those words would just be the worst kind of failure for me. So when it comes to challenges, I realize how fleeting the childhood years are. We were watching those final years with Disneyland being important and Santa Claus and all that stuff. And now I'm thinking to myself, okay, we have this extended period of time now with our second one. How can we make those moments embedded into the values of our family that we can't ever forget and that they can pass on to their kids too?
I love that. Yeah, because I'm getting to that point where some of those magical beliefs and stories around childhood are coming towards an end. So that is a beautiful thing to keep in mind. Um, are there things that you are excited about? Like, man, I have a second chance at this one thing that I wanted to do, that I want to do different, versus when I had my oldest daughter. Because I can also imagine your business was really new when you had your
Mhm.
first daughter. I had I actually launched, crazy enough, I launched my business 3 months before my oldest was born. So there was lots of stress, right?
Mm.
Are there things you're trying to do differently in the context of, the early years of child one versus child two that you're being very intentional about?
Well, that's another really thoughtful question. I think the best I can say is I'm wanting there to be I guess the best gift you can give your child is another sibling. And so introducing them, helping them engage each other, want to
Sure,
be
it's not a
around each other.
lollipop.
Yeah, in that moment they probably are, more interested in the lollipop than that annoying little kiddo. But yeah, I'd say one is I was working on getting my CFP 10 years ago, and my wife on her pregnant belly had a bunch of flashcards helping me pass the test. So those are special moments. This time around, I felt like we were at a point in our business where I could literally step away. It was very much different. I was working harder than ever with baby number one, and I was not ready for the birth, and I wasn't ready for the first few months of parenting because I was so focused on the business side. And candidly, I'm sure part of it was I was afraid of the transformation into parenthood. So I was digging deeper into the business. But this time around, we poured into a birthing class. We poured into, each other. We kind of talked through details about what we wanted in the experience of parenthood second time around. And it was such a night and day different experience, Jeff. I can't tell you how much better it was. I'll try. I mean, it was so much better the second time around to be on the same page with your spouse about the birth experience, about parenting, and we've been better off for it. So, treat it almost, this if you're going to be a new parent listening to this now, treat it almost like at least a part-time job. We devoted, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes a day to a class for 7 or 8 months. Once we learned we were having a baby, we wanted to make it, an intentional thing. So we gave it 5 days a week, made it a class almost for ourselves. We took a few courses and homework and reading and all that stuff. It was fun, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
I love that. And for the folks that are listening in, if anyone's heard me talk about this before, the big difference between like a good dad and a great dad, is great dads are intentional. And so what you're talking about is intention, right?
Yeah.
Like it's moving beyond being present to like planning out in advance what you want to learn, how you want to grow, how you want to
Yeah.
like collaborate with your partner, your co-parent, that sort of thing. So it's very cool.
I heard there's a quote, and I'm not sure who said it, but the quote is, and it's become a principle in my life. I have a little list of principles here, and one of them that's related here is: if you're easy on yourself, the world is hard. If you're hard on yourself, the world is easy. So, the world becomes easy, I should say. Now, I have to quickly say that doesn't mean like be abusive to yourself, or look down on yourself, or have neglectful use of like your health and your mental health. but being hard on yourself, in my definition there, would be hit the gym, read a book about friendship, about spiritual health, your marriage. If you devote yourself, if you're intentional, to use your word, great dads are intentional. It's easier to check out at the end of the day. It's easier to grab that fourth beer. It's easier to just head out with your friends and buddies and go golfing. But it's harder to face your fears around things like parenting, or, a better marriage, or, overcome a conflict with your child, or whatever it is. It's easier to run away from those things. It's harder to be intentional. But when you are intentional, and I'm sorry I'm preaching, I'll get off the soapbox here in just a minute, Jeff, but when I am intentional, I notice that there is an ease to everything else. Everything sort of bends itself to your intentionality rather than it running roughshod over you.
You mentioned you have these principles. I'm curious, do you have a set of quote unquote family values or these principles? And if so, how do you engage your eldest on these principles or values?
Oh, man. Okay. Well, this kind of gets into financial planning a little bit too. So, we really do think it's better if you name it and make it intentionally part of your life. And candidly, I think we could be better at this around our house. I would like it to be a visible, written list of values. And in fact, there's a family that decided to make their family values a placemat on their dinner table. And every letter of their last name, so Hittner, what would the letter H, maybe it's hospitality, for example. We're going to be the hit.
Maybe it's ChatGPT helping me figure out how they all fit. That's what it is.
Great way to put that. Yeah. So, have some kind of like list. Okay, we're going to be, if we're part of this clan here, we're going to be these things. What does it mean to be a Hittner? What does it mean to be a Willis? And I found that becomes then the topic of conversation at the dinner table. Don't just let it be a placemat, but be intentional to discuss it. Maybe once a week, one family member brings up one of the letters, and we're going to talk about that letter for the week. So, as far as us go, we've written them down. We've talked about it. We don't have it visible. We have a few different things written around our house that remind us, of what we stand for and what we are. Quotes, scriptures, things like that. But I think it would be so cool to, take these values and principles that I've been writing down. I've put them in a journal. I've got them places where my family would find them if I ever croaked. But wouldn't it be great to have it more intentionally written and then talked about around the table? I hear our clients doing this all the time. One person taught me, you don't want to just prepare the money for the kids. You must prepare the kids for the money.
Yeah. That's great.
Otherwise, it's just going to get blown,
Yep. I love this idea. I hadn't heard the placemat idea before. I do something in our family where it's really important for me to do daily gratitudes, as there's a lot of positive reasons for it. One is for resilience, and one is for there's proof that it makes you happier over the long term if you want to create and build happy families. And so to do that, we put a gratitude tree, like a stencil that I bought on Amazon, and I put it on the wall in the dining room. I'm sure my wife thinks it looks ugly, because it does, but it's a daily reminder. So when we're sitting down at the dinner table, it's right there. Like I'm looking right at it. And so, okay, boys, it's time to do our gratitude. So this idea of the placemat is very similar. And in my programs as well, we do a bit of a Mad Libs around values. We determine what values are most important to any individual dad that's doing the work in our Founding Fathers program. And then we sort of turn it into a Mad Libs to figure out the best way it comes together in a story. So all of these are really thoughtful ideas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as a financial planner, is there like a different level of worry or insecurity, or maybe it's the opposite because it's your job as a financial planner, but how are you thinking about like your kids and money, and not in terms of teaching them about money, but like, oh my God, I just had a kid. If things continue, which I don't think they will, but if things continue as is, going to cost me, $750,000 to send them to college by the time they're 18. So how do you think about this as someone who thinks about it every day?
Well, there's a quote, the cobbler wears no shoes, or cobbler's kids have no shoes, I think it is. So it's so common, man. Thank God it's not common in my house, but it's so common for the financial planner to be worse off financially than most of his or her clients.
I didn't know that. That doesn't give me much.
It's shocking.
Much confidence. Yeah.
I jokingly say that's why they call them brokers, because they're broker than you are.
Oh, wow.
So now you know there is no Wizard of Oz behind that curtain.
Yeah.
And most of the time they're just glorified salespeople. But that's for another podcast, another topic. I would say the biggest thing I can say for myself, I'll keep it focused on me for today's conversation, is I got to practice what I'm preaching. I got to be saving like 30% of my income or more. That's my recommendation to most clients. Most Americans are saving less than 5% of their income, less than 5. That's for everything from retirement to the flat tire, to the kids' college, to the leaky roof. It's just not going to be enough, right? So most people feel overwhelmed by that 30% number. And so I usually tell them what I did. I was in debt up to my eyeballs when I started in on this. Student loans were like another mortgage payment. My wife and I jokingly say I married 2 women in college. I married my wife and I married Sally Mae, or she married me, I should say. And we wanted her out of the relationship. So slowly but surely we plowed money, sucked money away. We did the beans and rice lifestyle for a long time. And we now teach our kids that that's a good thing to go without, is okay. Delaying gratification, paying for it yourself, giving our kids real jobs to do, like early, give them a real job, pay them money to do a job. And we teach them that a job or a business, specifically a business, is and entrepreneurship is when you solve a problem for somebody else. And the money you get from that business is the handshake, the thank you from your fellow mankind. So if you're not being paid enough money, it's because you're not solving somebody's problem in a way that helps them realize that they need to reward you and thank you for that good work. So that's been what we've been teaching them. But back to your question, I don't see inflation stopping anytime soon. I can't see the tuition prices going down unless there's some fundamental change to how we educate our children writ large. Maybe you're right, but we've got these ticking clocks in our households. They're called kids, and we know age 18 is coming. And I would say college planning is essentially a retirement planning crisis, because most families will drain their retirement accounts and take a loan against their house to help that kid get to their favorite college so they can go learn, an arts and crafts degree, or worse, spend 6 years there and have no degree and have a lot of red cups in their back of their dorm room, if you know what I mean. So what I'm going for, and to answer your question, I think about the intention, there's that word again, to send our kids off, if they're going to go off, to make the world better than they found it, and to then be totally fine to delay their gratification because they've been trained on how to do it, and to have a skill set that is more than just showing up for the W-2 job, but is essentially the entrepreneurial approach. Maybe I'm poisoning their minds with this entrepreneurial dream I've lived, but I want to give them that feeling that they don't have to rely on one boss and their opinion of my daughter or daughters to keep that paycheck flowing. I want to give them that entrepreneurial edge that says, even if the world goes to hell in a handbasket, we can get out there and sell our favorite cookies, or we can do our lemonade stand, and it'll be okay, even if we're, trying to figure it out one day at a time.
The entrepreneurial mindset is what most people are considering the most critical educational mindset right now in a world where we can't determine like what is going to be around in 5 or 10 years.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
totally connect with you on that. My pushback would be, 70% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. So saving 30% is impossible.
Yeah.
Right. And so what is the, what is the alternative, if there is one, to being more practical around how we do this? And, also, my two children are very different. My first one has amazing delayed gratification. I mean, I could give him. It was funny when he was 5. We'd have to drive to school when we moved before we switched schools because of our move. And I would give him a cookie for the ride, and he wouldn't eat it until we got under this bridge, which was like 20 of the 30 minutes before we got there. So I just knew this kid knows delayed gratification.
Right.
My second kid, the opposite. I mean, if I give him a cookie, the whole thing is in his mouth, right? Like not even one bite. And so they are completely different.
Same
there
household.
Are definitely, there are definitely aspects that we can work on and teach. But like everything else, some things we can do from a delayed gratification standpoint, and other things we can't, right?
Sure,
if we have to pay for childcare to go to work. So what's your workaround, or what's your philosophy from that perspective?
Well, I mean, there's a lot here. First, compassion. I understand when you say 75% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And I was there. And I didn't have any kind of special magic pixie dust that got me out of it. What I did was I started with a negative savings rate. I was throwing all of my money and then some towards student loans and a little bit of credit card debt, but made that delayed cookie choice, right? I didn't buy a house for a long time. I drove a beater car for a long time. I had old clothes. I didn't impress anybody for a long time. And this is not to beat my own drum or toot my own horn. Many Americans have done this. And go back to the Census Bureau from 1940. Average Americans were saving 30% of their money, and there was about 10% of their money went to debt. The rest was lifestyle and taxes. Now it's flipped. Now the average American spends a little over 30% of their money on financing. Think about that for a minute. Just think about that, and go back to our dad's conversation. If you're trying to be an ambitious dad, and a third of your day is being a slave to a bank, because that's what money is time, right? Time is money, money is time. And if a third of your earnings is going to a bank, what does that mean about a third of your waking hours? That means you're working for the bank. You're not actually working for your boss, or you're not actually in business for yourself. So I'm not here to frighten anybody, but that's what I woke up to. I said, I hate this. I hate this slavery. So I started with 1% savings, then 2%, then 3%. And we made it a little game. We tried our best every month to save as much as we could. Can we do better than ever before? Can we save more than we've ever saved in any month previous? That was what my wife and I would do. And I had several jobs, working ugly, dirty jobs, while trying to be, in the financial world. I was working for an accountant, but I was also under elevators, sucking out dirt and mud and whatever else you found, and shoveling snow in the Chicago winters and all that ugly, dirty stuff. And slowly but surely, we increased our savings rate. So what if you're listening to this and you're feeling overwhelmed, 30% is way too much. Don't eat that elephant. Instead, in the next 90 days, could you just figure out what your savings rate is? And then how about the next 90 days, you try to increase that savings rate? Maybe it's 3%. Maybe you can increase your savings rate to 4% over the summertime or in the fall. Just every 90 days, can you increase your savings by 1% or 2% if you're ambitious? Because as the old saying goes, in life, you get what you tolerate. And if you believe you're supposed to, if you believe you're never getting another cookie ever in your life, you'll gobble it up really fast. And I may have been that kid. I don't remember, Jeff. But I think the best thing we can do is just remember that there's always more where that came from. There's gonna be another cookie, and maybe we can save a little bit, wait a little bit, delay a little bit. It's something our grandparents seem to know. Again, the savings rates from the 1940s were clearly different than they are today. And were we stronger as a country? Were we stronger as a family in the 1940s? Who knows?
No, I think that's great advice. And I was hoping you would say something to that effect in terms of, we've got to start where we are. And I love that first step is like, figure out what is your savings rate and is it negative? And then how do you move the needle just a little bit and set these smaller goals? One of the ththings I love to end on is, fatherhood is messy. And I love to ask each of my guests, like, can you just tell me a bodily excretion story that, is really top of mind? And since you have a 3-month-old, I'm sure you have one. But what is in your head right now is just a ridiculous story about having to deal with some sort of physical mess.
Okay. Love your questions, Jeff. You're awesome at this. So yeah, a 3-month-old, basically things are just coming out of everything all the time, So, but we had a funny thing happen even this morning, where things were just, liquids were everywhere. Let's just say it that way. Except we noticed that she's maybe got a little cold or something. And so, she's got, little boogies coming out of her nose too. And so this is sort of a, kind of a back to the entrepreneurial thing, but my wife had found, she's so awesome because she finds these cool little gizmos and gadgets and things for babies that I would never think of. Those little bulb syringes that you can, you might use it for anything, ears or nose. Well, I always wondered, how do you clean those things? And aren't they just total like germ factories inside that bulb, Well, there's a clear one you can buy, and it can be the nose, the nozzle or whatever, can be detached from the bulb part, so you can get in there and clean everything out. And everything was so messy today, and it was sort of funny, and we were sort of, we were just able to laugh at it when it was all happening, because she was so adorable as it was all happening. But I just was so amazed that somebody had the bright idea to create a bulb syringe that you can detach, and it's all silicone, so you can clean it, and it makes for a much, a better childhood when you can realize, okay, there's somebody out there made that little invention, and they made their business run off of their little bright idea that they probably had in the shower somewhere. Not really a totally, like, it's more about the discovery. I was just remarking on how cool it is that this invention even exists, and we live in a time where we can have stuff like this. But yeah, babies have it good these days, more so maybe than you and I had as kids.
I wish they had been that thoughtful about when they started making like the metal or glass straws. Because like the things to clean those out these days are like very few and far between.
Good point.
So, well, Mark, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, especially as a new dad. I'm wishing you all the best. How much longer are you planning to stay on paternity leave, and when are you going back to work?
Well, you find me back at work. I'm actually doing some meetings. We are meeting with clients around the country, so it's back in full swing. But again, I like to check in and check out during banker's hours, so to speak, and it's my pleasure to get to work with clients, and I love doing it. But it's also my deepest passion to be known by my family, and they know me, so and I know them. So I usually check out at 4:30. So you won't see late night appointments with my calendar, but my calendar is available for folks if they want to chat with me.
Awesome. Mark, thank you so much, and wishing you the best.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Ambitious Dads Podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation and want more insights on balancing ambition and fatherhood, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upcoming episode. Check out the links in the description for our newsletter and more resources to help you live intentionally as a dad. See you in the next episode.